We made it to 5 weeks. 5 weeks ago, I didn't know if me and my baby girl would make it out of the hospital alive. 5 weeks ago, we had a very traumatic childbirth experience, and I think I'm finally ready to share our testimony. Black and brown women are 3 times more likely to die during childbirth than white women. And I experienced why firsthand. I feel a responsibility to share my story because if sharing my story can raise awareness and save at least one life, then I feel like I've done my job. One of the biggest things I learned from this entire experience is make sure you advocate for yourself. But also make sure you have people there to advocate for you if you're not able to. That was my case. And I really wish everybody would come prepared. Childbirth is no small thing. My water broke at 10 a.m. on 9/11. And unfortunately, my child was not born until 3 days later, Sunday at 6:15 a.m. Let's talk about why. But honestly, I think it's important to go a little further back before we get into the nitty-gritty of everything. I did not feel comfortable with the lack of continuity of care that I was getting. Every appointment, I was seeing somebody different who honestly didn't feel very familiar with my case. I'm thankful to God that I had a pretty healthy pregnancy, but it seemed like it was a blessing and a curse because I didn't have any high-risk factors. I really felt dismissed. My official OB-GYN, I've only seen her once, and that was at 8 months. It was about a 5-minute appointment. And after I tell you my traumatic experience, some will probably ask, have you seen her since? Have you heard from her? The answer is no. I have not. Still have not, and probably don't have any appointments in the future with her either. So when my water broke, I remember this moment. I was super excited. I went to the restroom. I had a little spotting. I immediately called my husband. He came to the restroom. And so I was like, let me call. While I was on the phone with triage, I stood up and things just started progressing and trickling. I looked at my husband. He was like, is that? And I was like, I think so. And then we waited a little longer. It was like, oh my gosh, it's time. So it started off like very traumatic. Only 30% of women's water actually breaks at home. They usually have to have it broken in the hospital. So I was surprised and honestly happy to see baby girl before her due date. So we called them, and over the phone, they asked me if I was having any contractions, and I said no. They said, that's fine. Just stay home. Let us know when you start having contractions, and when they're about 4 to 5 minutes apart, come on in. Mind you, I wasn't due to be scheduled for my induction until the following day. So we stayed at home. Contractions kind of did start off and on. But by that evening, we were like, okay, let's go in. I've been leaking consistently throughout the entire day. My water broke this morning, but now we just wait. It's not like the movies. We'll see her soon. We get to triage, and we met an amazing nurse. Mind you, this story is filled with a lot of beautiful, amazing healthcare nurses and staff, so I don't want to dismiss any of that. We were very thankful to meet some very special people. So she does the swab. She confirms, yep, it's definitely amniotic fluid. Let me get you a room. She booked us a room. I remember she was like, room 10. And I did ask her, I was like, is there any case where people come to labor and delivery and their water is broken and they get sent home? And she's like, no, you're definitely leaking fluid. Your induction is tomorrow anyway. You're actively contracting. She showed me. So she was like, it's fine. Did you guys bring your bag? And we're like, yeah, we brought everything. We were so prepared. And so a first-year resident came in and wanted to do some additional testing, which I was confused as to why, but, we let her do our thing. I'm no expert. I'm an eye doctor. I'm not an expert in OB-GYN. So she did some tests, and those tests, she said, were inconclusive, and they could not confirm a ruptured membrane. So I thought that was weird. Later on, she had her senior resident come in and do additional testing as well, check my cervix. I wasn't super dilated. And they basically stated that they wanted to send me home. So I was a little confused. I said, "Well, I'm leaking fluid. What do you think about that?" She's like, "Oh, it's normal to have fluid during pregnancy." And I asked her, I was like, "Well, did the volume of the fluid in my uterus decrease?" She's like, "Yeah, it decreased a little bit, but the baby probably took a big gulp." So she said, "So go home, and if you start leaking fluid again, just come back." I said, "Well, I'm actively leaking fluid, and now that you've checked my cervix, I'm actively bleeding." And I showed her, and I was like, "It's never stopped. So you want me to go home, put a foot in the door, and come right back? I'm not understanding." The senior resident then clarified, "I mean, go if you have a big gush of blood or a big gush of fluid when you go home, come back." So, long story short, they sent us home. That entire night, I was crampy, I was aching, and I leaked fluid nonstop. But we said if it wasn't in the plan for us to have this baby, if God has different plans for us, let's just go home, let's pray, let's wait it out. We're due to be induced tomorrow anyway. Fast forward to the next day, I was supposed to be induced at 7 p.m. and you call a couple hours before. I called them and I said, "Hey, we're about to get ready to come, just checking in." And the person on the phone immediately goes, "Well, we're full right now. Can we just call you later on tonight if we have any openings?" I said, "Absolutely not. Number one, I need everybody to advocate for yourself. A little research is definitely necessary throughout this entire process," which I had done myself. After 24 hours of a ruptured membrane and leaking fluid, you are more at risk for an infection. So what I said on the phone after he told me don't come in, I said, "I've currently been leaking fluid for 30 hours. After 24 hours of leaking amniotic fluid, you're at a higher risk of infection. Are you guys okay with that?" He put me on hold. About 5 minutes later, he got on the line and said, "You should come in." So it's Friday night, my induction date, 9/12. We go in, everything's going smoothly. They start the induction process. My mom, my husband, my sister, they're all there rallying. We're very excited. We didn't know this process was going to be slower than expected, but that's normal. So things are going well for about 24 hours. We're inducing. And mind you, with the hospitals, everybody's on shift. So every 12 to 24 hours, people are rotating. You have different people, which is normal. But it's important to communicate your circumstances in between shifts. I'm going to make a long story short. After 24 hours of laboring, it was decided to start a stronger drug, Pitocin, to kind of get things going and start delivery. So before that drug was given to me, I said, "Let's go ahead and do the epidural. I do not want to push a baby out without an epidural." And so we did the epidural, waiting for it to kick in. After the epidural, I always felt my catheter, and I was asking, I said, I still feel things. Is this normal? And so we waited a little bit longer. We decided to go ahead and start the stronger laboring drug, Pitocin, and we were ready to go. So the doctor came in, she finished. So what happened was I had a superior rupture in my uterine lining, and so it was leaking, but it wasn't fully ruptured. So the doctor came in and fully ruptured it around 10 p.m. on Saturday, because we're on Saturday now, and she says, once I rupture it, it's going to be good to go. It's 10 p.m. By 1 o'clock, you're going to be ready to push. So let's go. So she said, "I'll see you guys back at 1 o'clock. At this point, the epidural is in. We've gotten the stronger laboring drugs. We fully ruptured the membrane. Now it's up to time and God." I fall asleep at this point. So I know the doctor said she was going to be back at 1. It's 10 o'clock. I'm like, I have 3 hours of sleep. I woke up to my mom covering me in blankets. I have like a blanket warmer, and I'm just covered in layers of blankets, and I'm shivering, and I'm like, what's going on? I can barely open my eyes, but I see my mom moving around. She's moving around and covering me. And so I don't know why, but I couldn't really talk. So I open my eyes, I close my eyes. People are in and out. People are moving me every which way. Another hour, I open my eyes again. Now my husband's standing in front of me. I see them both staring at the monitor. So what's happening during this state is my body, which was in full-blown contractions, had stopped contracting. You may ask why. You remember at the beginning of the story when I said that if your amniotic fluid is leaking for more than 24 hours, you're at higher risk of infection? Well, guess what? I got an infection. So not only did my body shut down, my epidural stopped working in the middle of the laboring process. So I'm in excruciating pain. I'm throwing up. My mom's literally holding a bag. What we can't eat, all I have is fluid. So I'm just throwing up the little bit of water and ice chips that I've been consuming the last few days. I had a fever. They kept coming in and my fever was going up and up every time they checked it. My blood pressure, which I had no issues with my blood pressure the entire pregnancy. My systolic jumped up to 180. The babies jumped up to 140. I'm shivering. I'm feverish. I have an infection and my body has decided, I don't care that you're in the middle of labor. You have an infection that's life-threatening and we're shutting everything down. So at this point, it's 4 a.m, which may be confusing to you guys because the doctor said they would be back at 1 because it would be time to push. My husband's running around in the hallways talking to the nurses. Where's the attending? Where's the attending? My wife's not contracting. She has a fever. Her blood pressure's up. The baby's blood pressure's up. Something's wrong. It takes a little while, but the doctor comes in and basically what the doctor says is she tells us everything that's gone wrong in our life. She's like, you have an infection. You stop contracting. The baby is now sitting in your pelvis. And my husband and I are listening to all of these things. And we're like, okay, you're telling us all the wrong. And we're like, so what's next? And she says, they should have never sent you home on Thursday. This is all happening because they should have induced you on Thursday. This is on Sunday morning. She's telling us this. I'm not sure why they sent you home. And so my husband says, so should we do surgery? You may ask, is my husband a medical professional? No, he's an attorney. Has no clue about the medical profession. But we went into surgery and did an emergency C-section, honestly, because my husband suggested it. Have somebody to advocate for you. So within 15 minutes, we went into emergency surgery. And once she started telling us about the surgery details, she said, because my body wasn't contracting and I had an infection, this was a higher risk surgery and I was going to lose a lot of blood. My husband had to step out of the room at that point. And I looked at the doctor and I grabbed her and I said, if this was you, would you be concerned? And she paused and she said yes. And I just remember, because I was so out of it, but I came to in that moment and I looked at her in her eyes and I said, I need you to make sure me and my baby make it out of this hospital. And at first she kind of brushed it off like, no, we're going to do our best. And I just kept staring at her and I was like, I need you to make sure me and my daughter make it out of this hospital. And she looked at me and she said, I got you. And I said, when are we doing the surgery? She said, right now. And they rolled me out. That was the most scared I probably ever have been in my life, because after getting an epidural and it's not working and now they're saying, oh, you're going to go into surgery. My biggest fear is you guys are going to slice me in half and I'm going to feel every bit of it. Thankfully, we had a great team to make sure that that was not the case. My baby was healthy. She came out healthy. I lost almost 4 liters of blood. For comparison, for a normal C-section, women lose maybe half a liter to 1 liter of blood. So we stayed in the hospital for about a week. And it wasn't necessarily because my baby girl needed the extra time. She's so strong. It was me. My body needed to recover from all of the trauma that it went through. Some of my friends and family still really don't know, why were we in the hospital for so long? Why weren't we responding to our texts and their calls immediately? Child, we were fighting for our lives. And honestly, after we got back to our postpartum room, we were just loving on baby girl and focusing on the positive because we still had a ways to go before we would be discharged. After our C-section, I immediately was given some blood infusions to kind of recuperate. For those of you guys who don't know, breast milk is made from your blood. So with me being very deficient in my blood supply, I was told I may not be able to breastfeed. And if I do, it will be a delay in my breast milk coming in because my body needs to recover. So when we did finally start producing breast milk, the excitement that me and my husband had was honest. It was a blessing. God had really covered us, me, baby girl, throughout this entire process. We did make the decision because baby girl can eat, okay? To do combo feeding. So we breastfeed and we do formula. Shout out to Bobby Formula. That's been bridging that gap for us. She's doing really fine. She's had her 1 month appointment last week. She's in the 90th percentile for weight, 90th percentile for length. She is a healthy girl, and we are so happy about that. But I definitely wanted to share my story to tell people, women, that pregnancy is something that it takes a toll on us mentally, physically, emotionally. And we have to do our research. Of course, we don't need to become a whole medical professional, but we need to know what's normal and what's not normal. And you need to make sure you're asking questions. If you go to these appointments, make sure you have questions written down beforehand. If you're confused about something, follow up and ask more. If you feel like something's off, go into labor and delivery and get checked out. It's okay. Trust your instinct. I would say I told myself that if there was anything off, I would be extra diligent about going in and getting checked, because we tend to be strong, sometimes too strong, and endure a lot, and I think that's sometimes what contributes to the high maternal death rate. But a lot of it is just being dismissed. We really didn't see a drastic change in our care until we started revealing our professions of being an eye doctor and attorney. And in my opinion, that should have nothing to do with the quality of care that you give. If you've made it this far, I thank you for listening. Please share to a friend or family member to just help awareness. We want to make sure that women are advocating for themselves and they have a team behind them to advocate for them as well. We want to make sure that we're doing our research so we'll know what's normal, what's not normal, and when to speak up and go in to get checked. Women go through a lot during pregnancy, and the least that we owed is to be able to walk out of that hospital with our lives intact and our baby's lives intact. Thank you for listening.